It's well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier to tell your kids character matters. It matters. Telling the truth matters. Being a good person matters. And it's easier for a whole lot of people. If you're Muslim in this country, you don't have to worry if the president doesn't want you here. If you're an immigrant, you don't have to worry if the president's going to back up for no reason. This is vindication for a lot of people.
A few years later.
That guy is dangerous. That's dangerous. When those people are saying Jews will not replace us, Jews will not replace us, that slogan sits on top of a very sick and twisted view that if you bring enough people of color here, we are so deficient, we are so stupid, we are so unwanted that we will be zombies to fill out the ranks for some Democratic Party agenda that Jewish people are manipulating and driving forward. That leads to violence. That puts at risk Jewish people. That puts at risk people of color. It is wrong. And the smug, condescending way that he just spews this poison out is very, very dangerous because he won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person. Yeah. And I was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
Just shut the fuck up. At a certain point.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Crying Van Jones, okay? The token black guy from the Crying Negro Network, where it seems like they have black men come on television and cry on a regular, okay? Van Jones is the same person who boo-hoo-whined and cried when Joe Biden became president of the United States. And most recently, he was pearl clutching and shaking. He was pearl clutching and shaking over Vivek calling out the Democrats and the hypocrisy of the fact that they seem to be the only people in this country that can talk about the issue of demographic change without being smeared as racist and bigots, even though Democrats literally always are talking about demographic change and how it is fundamental to their agenda for the country, right? This is something that they openly talk about out loud. And it just so happens that a video resurfaced of Van Jones, who was literally shaking, right, over Vivek, basically, again, just stating facts about the Democrat Party. Video of Van Jones coming out and saying exactly what Vivek and others have pointed out that Democrats often say when it comes to this issue of demographic change. Take a look.
Asking the white majority to do something is difficult. And I think it'd be easier if we just acknowledge that it's difficult. No ethnic majority group in 10,000 years of human history that I could find ever went from being a majority to being a minority and liked it. And that's basically the request from the racial justice left, is that we want the white majority to go from being a majority to being a minority and like it. That's a tough request. And the reality is that change is hard. Change that you want is hard. Change that is good is hard.
Yeah, so you see, now you hear that, okay? Van Jones openly endorsing what the liberal media says is a white supremacist conspiracy theory, right? Again, Clan Jones. Clan Jones. I didn't say that. I actually didn't say that on purpose. Clan Jones. Clan Jones. Yeah, that's his new nickname. Clan Jones, right? Clan Jones. Basically saying out loud what Democrats claim is a racist thing to say. Only if you're a Republican or a conservative. If you say that, look, demographic changes happen in this country. You know, white people are becoming less and less a part of the country. And part of the reason why has to do with, you know, birth rates. Also, immigration has something to do with it, right? There's a various reasons, okay, for why that's happening. Okay, Democrat policies, you know, contributing or whatever. Again, Clan Jones openly out loud says that this is happening and that, hey, you got to be cool with it, right? You got to be cool with it. Change is hard, okay? Suck it up, snowflake, right? That is Clan Jones, okay? Sounding like a Klansman, sounding like a white supremacist, right? Because this is what Democrats told us, that this is a white supremacist talking point, okay, when you say this type of stuff. So there you have it, out of Clan Jones's mouth, okay? So with that being said, we got to get to Vivek, okay, who, after that debate in which he pointed this out, the mainstream liberal media smeared him as a bigot, white supremacist, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know what they always say. Again, Van Jones's comments, I think, are the comments that went the most viral, right? Because his was probably like the most ridiculous, okay? So Vivek responded to Van Jones at Turning Point and told Van Jones to shut the F up in the most epic way possible. Take a look.
If you told me this 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But I now have my views that are a product of my experiences. We got to open our eyes to see that disease of dishonesty. The same government that has lied to us about not only what happened on 9/11, but the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, about the basis for the 2008 bailouts and the financial crisis, about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that never was, about the Hunter Biden laptop story, which we absolutely know to be true, about exactly what happened on January 6th, to the origin of COVID-19, to the Nashville transgender shooter manifesto, to how our own money is being spent in Ukraine today. We demand a government that tells us the truth again in this country. That's what we require. We can handle the truth. That's what it means to be a citizen of this country. So I say that on that last debate stage to a bunch of Republicans that are shaking in their boots. These are the things you're not supposed to say in the Republican Party even today. And then you get the mainstream media. You got this character Van Jones on CNN afterwards saying, this is the rise of an American demagogue who's going to live 50 years longer than Trump. This is dangerous. I am shaking. That's what he says. Just shut the fuck up. At a certain point, just shut the fuck up. Van Jones at CNN. We're done with it. And I think you got to ask yourself, why am I the only candidate in this race who can say certain things?
Well, it's obvious, because you're not bought and sold, right? Because you made your own money outside of politics, and you're not bought and sold like the rest of our politicians. Now, I got to tell you guys, I love that, right? I wish I was there in person to see it. In fact, this weekend at the Jake Paul fight, I actually met Vivek Ramaswamy. It's pretty funny because I was urged to go, even though I didn't really want to go to the fight, but I was urged to go. And the same day as the fight, I found out that Vivek was going to be at the fight too. I think Jake Paul invited Vivek to be ringside, during the fight. And it just kind of changed my world, right? I actually ended up meeting Vivek.
We're going to get together soon.
If you guys don't know, you can follow me on Instagram at gforemanbcp. I encourage every single last one of you to follow me on Instagram. But I met Vivek in person, and I got to tell you, it's surreal, right? I think that this guy is the real deal. And I think that it is very smart that he is trying to appeal to the younger generation, okay? And I think it is very smart that he's making moves, like, for example, hanging out with Jake Paul, doing his speech at Turning Point, which is targeted towards young kids. And you can tell from the way that he's talking, right? Him telling Van Jones to shut the F up. Yeah, that's what young people respond to, right? That's what I want to hear, okay? Not all this, politeness, right? Because Republicans have been polite for too long, right? And we can't continue to be polite with people who literally think that we are terrorists, right? So, again, I think that Vivek is the future. I really do. I think he's the future. I don't see any Republican that I feel like I could passionately support as much as somebody like Vivek in the future after Trump, of course, right? And, that's the thing about Trump. Trump has also brought younger people into the party as well, too, believe it or not, right? A lot of these people, even at the Jake Paul fight, it was funny because people were, yelling Trump when Vivek walked into the room, which, hey, that's... that's neither here nor there. But at the same time, I think that kind of tells you, how Trump has that appeal with the younger crowd. And I think that Vivek is trying to line himself up to be that next guy, right? To take the Republican Party, into the future and to actually have some outreach with the younger generation. Because I think young men in particular, if we can mobilize young men the same way the Democrats have mobilized young women, you have your counter for abortion, right? You have your counter for all these women showing up to vote. Get young men to show up to vote just like Democrats get young women to show up and vote, right? A lot of young men, whether they are traditionally conservative or not, they do have a libertarian streak in them, an anti-establishment libertarian streak that, is not necessarily, politically correct. Okay, again, it's more libertarian. And I think that that's what Vivek is leaning into and is smart. And I think, honestly, to God truth, that's kind of the direction that the Republican Party needs to go in. Okay, I'm so serious. And that's why I'm excited about the future. Because I think that Vivek is going to do a good job of taking the America First agenda to the next level. I think that he can articulate the agenda better than anybody. He is the only Republican that can consistently tell you what he wants to do, right? His policy agenda and why and how he can get it done, right? Including citing which section of the federal law or some, federal code or whatever that allows him to do X, Y, and Z. Right? Which means that he's not going to be reliant on some advisor interpreting it for him. An advisor that, again, can be working for the establishment, that could have his own interpretation, have his own agenda. He's not going to be relying on some advisor to tell him what the law says. He actually knows how to read the law himself, interpret the law himself, and make his own legal arguments for why he's allowed to do X, Y, and Z, or why we should do X, Y, and Z. And that is something that I think is extremely dangerous. Right? Extremely dangerous to the establishment. Okay? If you ever hear him articulate why the president can cut the federal workforce by 70%, he tells you what article, what section of, the code or whatever that justifies him being able to do that. Right? He can tell you. He can tell you why he believes that we should be able to end birthright citizenship. Right? He can tell you these things. He can articulate and make legal arguments for why. He's not just gonna come out and say, well, we should do it, right? He tells you why and how he can get it done. Now, again, is that subject to scrutiny? Clearly, right? Everything's subject to scrutiny. But again, he's taking it a lot further than basically any other Republican candidate that I can think of in regards to his grasp of the government, how the government works, and how he's going to actually get his agenda accomplished, which is funny because a lot of people criticize him for not having, any experience. But I'm just like, his level of knowledge and expertise probably makes up for his lack of experience. Now, again, that doesn't mean that his lack of experience doesn't hurt him. Obviously, it does. There's going to be a learning curve, but his learning curve is going to be extremely short, okay, because of how smart he is. So, again, after the Trump wave is done, man, like I said, I think that the America First movement is going to need somebody to, push the movement into the future. And right now, he's the number one guy, in my opinion. At least my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, once Trump is done, he's the number one guy. And the country would be smart to get behind somebody like him. I'm so serious. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.